You make no friends in the pits and you take no prisoners. 1 minute you're up $500,000 in soybeans and the next, boom, your kids don't go to college and they've repossessed your Bentley. Are you with me?
The revolution starts now.
We have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Turn those machines back on!
You are about to enter the Peter Schiff Show.
Show me the money!
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The Peter Schiff Show is on.
I don't know when they decided that they wanted to make a virtue out of selfishness.
Your money, your stories, your freedom. The Peter Schiff Show.
Welcome, everybody, to another live Peter Schiff Show podcast. This is day 3 of the U.S. government shutdown. But before I get into this podcast, I just want to prepare everybody, just in case I grimace in pain, just randomly throughout the podcast. Maybe I make a noise or something, just so you know what's going on. About an hour ago, I clumsily tripped over my computer cord. I got up off my sofa in the family room and I walked and I didn't realize, or I didn't notice the cord, and somehow my foot got caught in it and I tripped. And either I fell a weird way on my big toe on my right foot. I don't think it's broken, but it hurts like hell. I took some pain pills. I've been icing it for an hour, but it has this throbbing pain. And, Brock Purdy was out with a toe injury. He didn't play last night against the Rams. Mac Jones, I thought, did a great job. It was a good game. They won in overtime. And, they were a 9-point underdog against the Rams without a starting QB and some other key players that were missing from the lineup. If you don't know, the Niners aren't my main team. Unfortunately, my main team really sucks, and they're the Miami Dolphins, because I've been a Dolphin fan since I was a little kid, when I grew up in South Florida, and they used to win Super Bowls. Most of you weren't alive when they were doing that, but, this is Larry Zonka, Paul Warfield, Jim Kick, Mercury Morris, were the players back then. We had the great no-name defense led by Nick Bonacani. So that's why I became a Dolphin fan when I was in grammar school. And unfortunately, I've been stuck with the curse. And in fact, our key player got a brutal injury on Monday night, Tyreek Hill. So worse than my toe injury. But the bottom line is, Brock Purdy wasn't able to play football with his toe injury, but I am playing hurt. I'm doing this podcast despite the fact that I got an injured toe. I don't have a backup podcaster to fill in for me. When I have an injury. So I'm going to play hurt today. So just fair warning, just in case. Anyway, so normally on the first Friday of a month, I would be talking about the non-farm payroll report, the jobs report. But I can't talk about it because it wasn't released. And the reason it wasn't released is, I guess, there's nobody who showed up to work at the Bureau of Labor Statistics because of the government shutdown. Now, the main problem with the government shutdown is that they don't shut enough of the government down. I mean, most of the government is still up and running. So if they shut down the whole thing, I could get behind that. That might be something worthwhile. But unfortunately, most of the government is still operating, except some of the things that you might want to operate. Although if you're in the process of being audited by the IRS, like me, there is a pause, right? They can't audit you because they can't pay the agents, so that's on pause. Although my FOIA lawsuit, I'm also suing the IRS, which is probably why they're auditing me. But the government got an open-ended extension now to reply to something I filed because of the shutdown, right? Oh, they're not allowed to work, so somehow they've got this open-ended reprieve. So it works both ways. They paused my audit, but now I got to wait longer to get what I'm looking for from my FOIA lawsuit, right? Because I'm suing them because they should have produced the documents that I requested and they didn't do it. So now they forced me into court. And now the process, which has already taken forever, is delayed even longer by the shutdown. But the first problem is they don't shut down enough. Like maybe they shut down the national parks or stuff like that. But we all have to keep paying taxes, right? They keep taking taxes out of your pay. All the rules and regulations are not suspended, right? So we still have to deal with big government, even though it's supposedly shut down. But the other problem I have with the government shutdown is that they always end it and they reopen the government. So, I mean, we know it's coming back. I mean, if it was a permanent government shutdown, a lot more people might support it. But it's never permanent. It's all just theatrics. And apparently, the big sticking point is that the Democrats want to renew these subsidies for Obamacare that were put in during the COVID emergency, right? So it was a temporary relief because of COVID, and supposedly everybody was, earning less money during COVID, when the fact of the matter is most people earned more money during COVID, right? So to say that people needed special help with their bills, why would they need help? People weren't even paying rent. They weren't making payments on their student loans. And a lot of people who were not working during COVID were getting stimulus checks from the government that exceeded what they used to earn. So people had a windfall. People just went on a shopping spree during COVID. So the idea that they needed this extra help with their medical bills was just a bunch of BS. But anyway, this stuff was put in there as an emergency. Now, of course, the COVID emergency is gone, right? I mean, and in fact, it was a contrived emergency. The government made the whole thing up. I mean, they didn't make up COVID, but they made up the overreaction to COVID and the shutdown of an economy that didn't need to shut down. Look, Sweden didn't shut down, and the Swedes were fine, right? We should have done what Sweden did. In fact, I said that at the time, right? And you could have gotten deplatformed for saying something like that, right? Because everybody had to, keep up the line that we had to do this, because if you question the official narrative, you were somehow an enemy of the state, and you couldn't be allowed to speak because people might actually listen to you. But this is how government works, right? They get something in. Oh, it's an emergency. We need this. But now the Democrats are saying, well, because people have had it for so long, they can't live without it. Or we can't take this away. That will create a problem because, see, people are now dependent on this subsidy that we gave them during the emergency. And so now because they're dependent on it, it has to be permanent, which in and of itself shows you why you shouldn't even do this stuff, because the government creates the cycle of dependency, right? You make somebody dependent on your handout, and now it has to be permanent, right? So everything that's temporary in Washington becomes permanent. So at least the Republicans somehow, after all the reckless spending of the big beautiful bill, this is a bridge too far, right? This extra, they're claiming it's $1.5 trillion, I guess over, I don't know how many years they score it. But they're saying, no, we draw the line here. So we're going to shut down the government rather than spend this money. Now, I wish they would have shut down the government instead of passing the big, beautiful bill. I wish they would have vetoed, or Trump would have vetoed, the increase in the debt ceiling that he demanded as part of the big, beautiful bill. So that would have been a worthwhile shutdown. I mean, this isn't going to change anything, right? It's like, the Titanic is still going down, and they're talking about, where we should have the deck chairs, right? Doesn't really matter, man. Maybe, the Republicans think that this is too many deck chairs. Doesn't matter. That the ship's going down. So you're arguing over nothing. But who knows how long this government shutdown is going to last. But I think the Trump administration is probably happy that the government shutdown prevented the jobs report from being released, because I'm sure it would have been bad. In fact, we did get one jobs report earlier in the week, the ADP report, because that's, a private report, so it's got nothing to do with the government shutdown. So that came out on Wednesday. So we got that. I'll talk about that. So the expectation was for 50,000 jobs. Pretty low bar. But not only did they not meet that bar, they were well beneath it, because we actually lost 32,000 jobs, according to ADP, in September. And worse, they went back to the prior month, which was originally reported as plus 54,000 jobs. And they revised that to a minus 3,000. So that's back-to-back negative numbers for ADP. I can't remember the last time that happened. We were probably in a recession. I don't know. But minus 3,000 in August, minus 32,000 in September. Who knows how much bigger the negative number will be this month when we get that report in early December. Now, the expectation for the government number was 50,000. That's what people expected. So that's also a low number. And my guess is we would have come in well beneath it, maybe even with a negative print, just like we got in ADP. Also, the prior month was just 22,000. And that also may have been revised down to a negative number. So, the Trump administration was spared the embarrassment of a horrible non-farm payroll report. Now, the market rallied anyway today. I don't know what they would have done. It probably would have rallied because bad news is good news, right? Because it means we get bigger rate cuts. In fact, the Dow Jones closed at a new record high today, above 47,000. I'm not sure if this is the first time it's closed above 47,000, maybe, because it closed at 47,049.64, so barely above 47,000. Oh, there goes my toe. The S&P also closed at a new record high today at 67.15. I think that's a record close, but it hit an intraday high above 67.50. And I'm sure that's the first time ever that the S&P 500 traded above 67.50. The NASDAQ also hit a record high today of 607. That's the QQQ. Well, that was a record high, but it closed negative on the day. And let me see what the actual NASDAQ did, because that's just the 100 top stocks. The NASDAQ also closed negative on the day, but it also hit a new all-time record high, 22,925.43. But none of this matters, right? Because the media is going to talk about this when they, on the financial news, record high, 47,000 on the Dow. And yeah, it sounds like a big number because, back in the year 2000, the Dow hit 10,000. And now we're almost 5 times higher, right? The Dow was 10,000 and now it's almost 50,000. God, we're so rich because, the Dow is up 5 times. So I'm 5 times richer if I own the Dow than I was 25 years ago. See, that's what the government wants you to believe, right? That's part of the delusion of the drug of inflation, right? It's not just a tax, it's a drug. Look at the price of gold, because that's how you tell what's real, right? What's fake is the U.S. dollar price, because the dollar is just a piece of paper. It's fiat, right? Now, the gold also hit a record high this week. It didn't hit a new record high today. Silver hit a new 14-year high today. It traded above $48.30. But gold closed the day. Let me take a look here. We closed just below 3,890. So not quite 3,900. But this is record territory. I mean, it may be a few dollars shy of the record we hit. I think we traded above 38.90 briefly yesterday. That was a new record high before we got some profit taking on, the thin trading on Yom Kippur. Oh, by the way, I forgot to wish everybody on my last podcast a Happy New Year, all my Jewish friends. And I'm going to talk more about gold. I'm going to mention it a little bit on this podcast right here, but I'm going to speak a lot more about what was going on in gold and silver on the Schiff Gold Friday market wrap, which I'm also going to do today. In fact, I'm going to record the Schiff Gold Friday market wrap as soon as I finish doing this live podcast. So after you watch this, then go over to the Schiff Gold YouTube channel, or if you're listening to it, on another platform or at Schiff Radio, go to YouTube and subscribe to the Schiff Gold YouTube channel. And then you can go ahead and listen or watch my discussion of gold and silver on the week. Now, so gold was up about, 3% on the week. So in terms of gold, the Dow was down. In fact, we just ended the third quarter a couple of days ago, earlier this week. I think Tuesday was the last day of the quarter? Or Monday? No, Tuesday. Gold was up 17% on the quarter. 17%. So the Dow had a negative quarter priced in gold. Silver was up 29%, but let's just price it in gold rather than silver. So on the quarter, I'll just have to do it by memory. The numbers aren't going to be exactly accurate. I thought I wrote these numbers down, but I don't see them. But the Dow is worth 12 ounces of gold right now. It was worth, I think, 17 ounces of gold at the end of last year. So we're down about, 27%? Again, 27% on the year. 27% priced in gold. Now, if you go back 2 full years, from the end of Q3 2023 to the end of Q3 2025, those 2 years, the price of gold actually doubled over those 2 years. Now, yes, the Dow Jones went up, but it didn't double. So over the past 2 years, the Dow is down 33%. 33%. So they're going to talk about, this record high in the Dow. Yeah, the Dow dropped by 33% in terms of honest money, in terms of gold, right? And, if you have some gold dollars that were minted by the U.S. government right before 1933. If you have, a $20 gold eagle, not even like a collector's item, not like an MS-65 uncirculated, like beautiful collector's coin, but just your run-of-the-mill coin that you could just buy at Schiff Gold that, that circulated and that doesn't trade that much above its melt value, right? Just one of those. In terms of that real $20 coin, you have a 33% drop in the Dow in 2 years. Now, I've been talking about this. The bear market has been even bigger because in 2001, when the Dow was at 10,000 and gold was around 250, the Dow was worth 40 ounces of gold. Today, with the Dow almost at 50,000, it's only worth 12 ounces of gold. That is a 70% decline in 25 years. So it's all BS, right? The media wants you to think, the government wants you to think you're getting richer. You're not getting richer. The numbers are getting bigger because the money is getting smaller. The money, the dollar, is losing purchasing power. You need a lot more dollars to buy gold, and so you need more dollars to buy stocks too. But you need even more of them to buy gold than you do to buy stocks. In fact, even if you go back to the peak of 1929, that was a very overvalued stock market. The Dow was worth 19 ounces of gold in 1929. Here it is, 96 years later, the Dow was worth 12 ounces of gold. So again, that's a 33% decline. See, people think, well, we're so rich because in 1929, the Dow was 360, and now it's almost 50,000. So we must be a lot richer now. Look at all that growth when the Dow went from 360 to 47,000. You wouldn't know in terms of gold, it went down. Because in 1929, when you bought the Dow Jones, you paid in gold because the dollar was gold. So if you took the exact same dollar and assumed no numismatic value, just take the same gold that you could melt down, right? The melt value of the dollars that you paid to buy the Dow in 1929 is more than the melt value of the gold in the same dollars today. So the Dow is lower. Now, that doesn't mean you didn't make money in the stock market over 96 years. Yeah, you collected a lot of dividends, although the dividend yield recently hasn't been that great. But the point is the price of the Dow is lower, much lower. It looks higher because the numbers are big. But again, that is the illusion created by inflation. And one of the reasons that governments love inflation, because they make you think that you're getting richer even as you're getting poorer. We got a quick commercial break, so we're coming right back. Stick around.
I've never been a nicotine user, but when Lucy sent me a sample of their products, I really was impressed. I tried the 4 milligram version, and it was smooth, flavorful, and really enjoyable. But for those who want more of a kick, Lucy also offers 8 milligram and even 12 milligram options. Lucy's products are made with 100% pure nicotine and are always tobacco-free. A modern, clean way to enjoy nicotine. And here's something really innovative. Lucy Breakers. These are nicotine pouches with a twist. Each pouch has a capsule inside that you can break open to release extra flavor and hydration. It's a game changer for everyone who loves a burst of freshness. For added convenience, you can set yourself up with a subscription and have Lucy delivered straight to your door. It's hassle-free and keeps you stocked up with exactly what you need. Try Lucy for yourself at lucy.co. Use promo code GOLD to get 20% off your first order. That's lucy.co, promo code GOLD for 20% off. Lucy offers a smarter, better way to enjoy nicotine. Even as a first-time user, I can tell you it's a standout product. Let's level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.com/gold and use promo code GOLD to get 20% off your first order. Lucy has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. Again, that's lucy.co/gold and use promo code GOLD to get 20% off. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
All right. Before I continue with the podcast, and so I don't forget, I want to mention my upcoming appearances. I will be at the Orlando Money Show October 16th through the 19th, although I won't be there all of those days. I'm going to be in Orlando, but I'm bringing the wife and kids, and so we're going to be at the theme parks. Actually, we're going to Universal because they've got a new Epic Universe theme park, so we're going to go see that. But I will be there the first day. I mean, the Europe Pacific Asset Management will have a booth, and 2 of our representatives will be there for the entire conference. But my plan is to be there for the first day of the conference. And that's when my keynote talk is, and that's when my workshop is. And so make sure that you are there. If you want to see me, make sure that you're there day 1 on October 16th. And you can register for the Money Show. It's not free, but it's pretty cheap. But go to the website. There's a special URL for me. It's shift.moneyshow.com. And, just go there and you can sign up and I will see you in Orlando. Now, there's another conference where I will be there every day of the conference. In fact, I'm not normally I have my wife at New Orleans, but she's got stuff she's got to do and I don't bring my kids. So I will be there, just me with a couple of reps. And so I'll be spending a lot of time at the booth and just walking around the conference area. That is the New Orleans Investment Conference. And it should be a great conference this year because of the huge move that we've had in the price of gold, really unprecedented. It's been, very lackluster mood over the years because, people have been frustrated by the lack of performance in gold and the fact that it was overshadowed by Bitcoin. But this year, is a great year, so it should be a great time. And I love the city. New Orleans is a lot of fun, great music, great food. So I will be there. It is November 2nd through November 6th. And there is a special link to sign up for this conference, and it's neworleansconference.com/Schiff. And then you can sign up there, and I guess Brian London will have an idea that, you're there because of me. But again, if you've never been, definitely come down. And if you've been, then you know what I'm talking about. It's a great event. There's a lot of other great people that I look forward to seeing. Most of these conferences, I don't even really care what the other people have to say. But at the New Orleans conference, I do. And there's a lot of other people there. So it's not, don't just come there to hear me. There's some other really good people that I want to listen to as well. So hopefully I will see some of you there. By the way, on the returns, I'm not going to get into too much because I want to steal the thunder from the Schiff Gold Friday market wrap. But just quickly, so gold up 3% on the week, silver up 4% on the week. The gold stocks actually had a quiet week. The GDX was up 3.2%, and the GDXJ was up 3.7%, mainly because there was a big correction on Yom Kippur, and so they didn't really gain that much today. I think it was some profit taking. Maybe some of the people investing in the gold stocks moved some money over to crypto. Bitcoin had a big week today, or not today, had a big day today too, but all week. I think Bitcoin was up about 12%, so it finally, had a big rally. Maybe on the government shutdown might have been the catalyst. We didn't quite make a new all-time record high. The ETFs made record highs, the Bitcoin ETFs, because when Bitcoin itself made a record high, the ETFs weren't trading. So during these market hours, the ETFs made a record high. Bitcoin came close. I think we got up to 123,900, but we were about 1,000 higher. We got close to 125,000, I think, in spot Bitcoin. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, maybe it'll make a new high over the weekend. Interestingly enough, MicroStrategy stock finished negative on the day today, so maybe that's a divergence. But I do think that some spec money might have moved over from gold stocks into crypto or Bitcoin treasury companies. I think that's a big mistake. But I think the fact that people are still, trigger happy on these stocks. I mean, we had a big drop on Yom Kippur on silver. Silver got above $38 and then crashed $2 almost, down to $36. I think we ran a bunch of stops, and here we are, new highs today. Just shows you that the dips are very short, which is why I've been encouraging everybody to buy gold and silver. In fact, again, when you're finished watching or listening to this podcast, even before you go to listen to the Schiff Gold market wrap, go to Schiff Gold and buy some gold or silver. Because if you wait till Monday, I think it'll be more expensive. Now, no guarantee, but almost every Friday, certainly the last 4 or 5 in a row, maybe more, or every Monday, we've gapped way up. There's always a big move up in gold and silver on Sunday, but it's pretty quiet on Friday night, on Saturday, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. Schiff Gold is open 24/7, so you can buy, right? You don't have to wait for the New York market, because by the time that happens, who knows? Silver could be over $50. When it opens on Monday, if we get a $2 rally, which, we could easily do. Who knows? Gold could be above 3,900. It could be above 4,000. I mean, I think it's headed there. But anyway, let me move forward with some other topics I wanted to discuss, because I think the biggest movers on the week weren't the gold and silver stocks. They were the pharmaceutical stocks. And, we own a lot of those stocks in our strategies, in our dividend payer strategy, in our value strategy. I own quite a few of these stocks myself, a lot of, European and Asian pharmaceutical companies, and they had been beaten down because, Donald Trump has been threatening them, right? We're going to force you to cut your prices. We're going to control these prices, which of course is very ironic because when Kamala Harris talked about price controls at supermarkets, right, the Trump administration was all over her for being a socialist. But of course, he talks about price controls for drugs, and he doesn't get the irony or the hypocrisy of what he is advocating. And not that I don't think it would be nice if drugs were less expensive, but I don't want them to be less expensive because the government tries to control the prices. What I would like to see the government do is remove a lot of the regulations that are unnecessarily driving drug prices up. And I've talked about that many times on prior podcasts. So I don't necessarily want to get into it again on this one. But that's what Trump should be doing, not just trying to, force companies to cut prices at the point of a gun. But what happened was we got earlier in the week, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, Trump came out with his announcement of how he's going to lower drug prices. And the U.S. government is now going to launch a website, and I'm not making this up, called Trump RX, right? It's an official government site that's going to bear Donald Trump's brand, right? Now, I have no idea if there's any kind of, profit deal behind the scenes because we don't have all the details. So I don't know if there's any way that the Trump family gets cut in on any of this action. I mean, who the hell knows? But for now, supposedly, it's a government website. And Pfizer was the guinea pig. Right. And so they had a press conference with Pfizer, but apparently there's other drug companies that are going to make similar deals with the president. But Pfizer is going to make certain drugs available through its website that I guess you can access it through Trump RX. I don't know if that's the only way to access it or it's just kind of an aggregator where you can go to Trump RX and then you can go from there. You can get links to Pfizer and to all the other companies that are, cooperating with Trump. But apparently a number of drugs are going to be available at much lower prices than what they had been available for in the past. And when Donald Trump announced this, he says that, Pfizer is voluntarily lowering their prices. Now, I like this voluntary, right? But prior to this announcement, Donald Trump had already announced, and I mentioned this on my last podcast, a 100% tariff on imported pharmaceuticals, right? 100%. Now, since Pfizer has voluntarily agreed to these price reductions, it is exempt from those tariffs, at least for the next 3 years, right? Now, that doesn't sound voluntary to me. If the government says, we are going to hit you with this huge tax unless you agree to do this other thing, and you may not have done this other thing of your own volition, but if you do this other thing, then we're not going to punish you with something even worse, and then you say, okay, I volunteer to do this other thing, it's not really volunteering, right? It's kind of like how they describe the income tax. They say, well, it's based on voluntary compliance. Well, my father didn't want to volunteer. Oh, well, then you go to jail if you don't volunteer. Well, then it's not voluntary. That was his point. If I go to jail for not volunteering, then it's compulsory, right? If you do something to avoid a punishment, you are not doing it voluntarily. Voluntary would be, if you don't do it, nothing's going to happen to you. Well, then nobody would volunteer if there were no consequences, right? I mean, they use that analogy with a red light. That's how when you stop at a red light, it's voluntary. No, it's not. I'm stopping at a red light because I'm afraid that a cop's going to give me a ticket if he sees me going through it, right? I mean, if you find yourself at a red light at 3 a.m. and there's no cars, the only reason you're sitting there like an idiot is because you're afraid there's a policeman that's going to see you if you run it. But you don't want to sit there. I mean, you know that it's safe. You can easily cross the street. So this stuff is voluntary. So there's no way that Pfizer voluntarily did anything, right? They were extorted into doing it. But I think the whole thing is a big gimmick. I mean, the reason that these stocks had such spectacular rallies, right? Most of these drug stocks are up 10 to 15% since this was announced. Obviously, it's just another taco, right? Another Trump chickening out of these tariffs, because what the drug companies are going to give up must be relatively small. Otherwise, the stocks, wouldn't be celebrating the fact that they're slashing prices. So I'm sure a lot of this is just a gimmick, so Trump can, claim credit and get this big website, Trump RX. But I don't like the whole look of this. I don't like the U.S. government running this website in the first place. I don't like the U.S. government shaking down companies, even if the shakedown isn't, real, even if it's just for show. And I don't like the government getting involved in any industry. I mean, why? If you believe in capitalism, you don't want to see this stuff. The government is just going to screw it up. It's always going to backfire. We want free market. Again, Donald Trump looks at the country as if it's a corporation, and he's the CEO, and he's out there making deals and doing all this stuff. That's not what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to be getting out of the way. He's supposed to be freeing up the country to run on its own. When you're running your own business, okay, your own money is at risk, and it works because you're guided by the free market. You're guided by profit and loss. And so if you're losing money, you stop what you're doing. If you're making money, you do more of it. And there are price signals that let you know. But the government doesn't have any of these free market signals. So when you get the government involved in the private sector, you lose the benefits of capitalism. And so none of this is a good thing that Trump is doing. And it's just setting a very, very bad precedent for future presidents to do even worse things than what Trump is doing. And he continues, there's more companies. I forget some of the names of these companies where the U.S. government announces they've got a stake in this business, they've got a stake in this business. I don't want governments having a stake in any business. I already don't like the fact that the governments take so much of the profits with taxes and all these regulations. I mean, the government is too involved in the economy as it is. And Trump wants it to be even more involved. Although one of the most ridiculous things on the week, and Trump mentioned this once before, and somehow he resurrected the idea, but he came out and said that he's going to impose a 100% tariff on imported movies, right? 100% tariff, right? Just like the 100% tariff he was going to impose on drugs. Oh, and by the way, I'm sure a lot more companies now are going to come up on this Trump RX, and they're going to have some things there, and they're going to get out of the tariffs. In fact, they announced today the auto stocks, Ford and GM, spiked because now they're going to get some tariff relief, because I think Trump is going to say, well, if you have a manufacturing facility here, but you're importing a lot of the components, you can be exempt from some taxes. I'm not sure about the details. But yeah, that's what happens, is that it's assembly that takes place here. But a lot of the components that are being assembled into a finished product are imported. And of course, none of these companies have set up new facilities to manufacture these components domestically. They're all still importing them and paying the tariff. And so now I think they're getting some relief. And now Trump is talking about giving the farmers relief from tariffs. Ironically, Trump said that he wants to investigate the agriculture supply business, right? I remember as soon as I own a stock, Nutrien, and we own that. And I saw Nutrien just all of a sudden sold off. I'm like, what's going on there? Because they, a potash company up in Canada, and they sold off because Trump said, oh, we're going to investigate them because we think they're overcharging our farmers. Well, if Trump is worried about import costs for farmers, why is he putting tariffs on the potash that's coming in from Canada? But of course, there's a free market. And if we try to tell Nutrien that they have to lower their prices, well, screw it. They'll just sell more to China. they'll sell more to Brazil, right? There are plenty of farmers around the world that could buy the potash. I mean, yeah, it's easy to sell to us because we're right here. But, I mean, they're not going to lose money. But, this is Trump. He wants to go in. But now he wants to give farmers, because I guess one of the ways that the tariffs are hurting farmers is that some of the other countries where we've imposed tariffs on their goods, they're buying more of their soybeans or their wheat or their corn from Brazil instead of from us. And so our farmers are losing money. So Trump is like, oh, well, let's give you back some of the tariff money. But, of course, he was counting that tariff money to reduce some of the huge deficits of the big, beautiful bill. And they're also talking about giving the consumers back tariff money. Well, why take the money from them in the first place if you're just going to give it back to them, right? You're robbing them out of their right pocket. You're picking their pocket, and then you're giving in the left pocket, you're putting some of what you stole back in. Why don't you just stop stealing it? These are all gimmicks. But the announcement on the movies, right? This just shows you Trump doesn't even understand what the hell tariffs are. He calls himself the tariff man. I love tariffs, right? He doesn't even understand them. He wants to put 100% tariff on a movie that's filmed abroad. How the hell do you do that? It's not even possible. And first of all, so most of the movies that Americans watch, they're not foreign films, right? Foreign films are not very big. I mean, they got like a niche audience, right? And a lot of them have subtitles, right? I mean, if I want to read a movie, I'll read a book, right? I want to just watch a movie. I want my mind to just, wander, or I don't want to have to read, because I find if I'm reading subtitles, it kind of screws up the experience of watching the movie. In fact, one of the reasons I don't even like going to the movies here in Puerto Rico is they all have the Spanish subtitles. I don't like seeing them. I think it interferes with the visual quality of the movie. I got all these, Spanish words, on the bottom. But, there's some people that like these artsy French films, Italian films, and, but they're not very big, right? So, and I don't even know how you tax those. I mean, maybe what you could do is if a foreign film is going to be distributed in the U.S., and a U.S. company signs a deal, a distribution company, to distribute an Italian movie in the U.S., I suppose you could put a tariff on the value of the contract. So let's say I pay an Italian company $1 million for the rights to their film to distribute it in theaters. Or let's say I'm Netflix, and I pay an Italian company for the streaming rights in the U.S. I suppose you could tariff that. Somehow you could say, Netflix, you got to pay this tariff as a percentage of what you paid for the right to stream this movie or show this movie, right? But it wouldn't raise a lot of money because it's not on the whole budget or the whole production, because you can't tariff that, right? You're just tariffing this deal, the distribution deal. But most of the movies with all the box office are U.S. companies that are producing these movies. And America, we're exporting these movies. One of the industries that we still have a surplus in is entertainment, right? The world loves American movies, American music, and we earn a lot of money selling our movies and our music all over the world. So it's a great industry. Why would Donald Trump want to screw that up? But what he's saying is too much production is being done in other countries, right? They're shooting on location in Canada, or they're shooting somewhere in the Caribbean, or they're shooting in Europe. Now, sometimes you need to shoot on location because that's, the films, right? They if you're doing a film about Europe, it's good to actually shoot it in Europe, right? So it makes sense that you would have a location that would match the storyline. But I mean, what Trump wants to do is he wants all the filming to be done in America, like on a studio back lot that we don't really have the studio system anymore where we film everything, on a lot. Most stuff is shot remotely on location, not in a studio. a soundstage like the 1920s. But how do you even tariff that? Because you're going to say, okay, you know, whatever percent of your budget was spent overseas, you shot some of that movie in Canada, you hired some Canadian sound guys or lighting people, or maybe you had a Canadian actor. Are you supposed to pay a tax on, because you're not importing it, right? A tariff is paid on a product that's importing. If you actually go to Canada and pay actors and cameramen and makeup people, and you pay them in Canada, you haven't imported anything. Now, the movie itself is being made here in America, right? It's a U.S. film. They're just shooting some of it on location in other countries, right? They still bring it back. They generally do the editing, the sound. A lot of that stuff is done here, although some of that could be done up there too. I mean, they do it all over the place, but the money is raised. The company, these are American companies that are making these movies, but there is no way to tariff them. There is no import. I mean, even if you put a tax on the theater, like at the box office, if you said if you go to see a movie, America, we're going to tax you if the movie that you're watching was filmed in another country. But that wouldn't be a tariff. That would be a federal excise tax on movies. And the tax would be based on the percentage of the budget, I guess, that was spent outside the United States. But this would be asinine, right? All this would do, it would run up the cost for American companies to produce films. And they would have to pass on that cost to the ticket buyer. You know, the streaming services, Netflix, I mean, they're having enough trouble now, you know, with Elon Musk leading a drop Netflix campaign. But all these, like I just mentioned on my podcast, you know, Disney, you know, just jacked up their prices again over the last year by another 20% or something for their streaming. But they'd have to jack them up a lot more if the U.S. government imposed some kind of excise tax on their streaming rights because they were streaming a content that wasn't produced or filmed here in the United States. But clearly, Donald Trump doesn't know anything about the industry, right? The motion picture industry. Or why? I mean, if companies are filming parts of their movies abroad, why are they doing that? Because either it's important that it be there for the storyline, or they're saving money. They're reducing their production costs. Well, that's what they're supposed to do, right? If you're a company and you are producing a product, you're supposed to try to make that product as efficiently as possible. And if it can be made more efficiently by outsourcing and doing some of it in other countries, then that's what you do. Because the bottom line is more profits are being generated here in America. Whatever the motion picture industry is doing, they're doing a good job. They're making a bunch of money. Now, I don't agree with a lot of the woke crap that's going on in a lot of these films. And a lot of the movie industry, they're a bunch of socialists, but they don't understand the hypocrisy because they're doing well in capitalism, right? They may not like capitalism as an economic, system, but they sure as hell know how to profit from it. You know, I had a lot of, traction on a comment. Mark Rufio, you know, actor, big, you know, left-wing guy. He made a comment on X about profits and how the government needed to do something because I forget exactly what got him all upset. And he said, this is terrible and they shouldn't be charging this money. And I basically sarcastically agreed with him. And I said, I agree with you. And I think the same should apply to motion pictures and entertainment. I said that being entertained is a right, that all people should have a right to be entertained. We should have a right to comedy. We should have a right to some drama and some intrigue. You know, I mean, life is boring and tedious, and we all deserve something to entertain us. And it's not fair. Entertainment shouldn't just be for the rich. everybody should have equal access to entertainment. And I said it should all be provided by the government, right? Not by some profit, greedy capitalists. The government should produce all of the entertainment and make it available for free. And I said all the actors should just be paid, the same wage as we pay our postal workers, right? Why should actors make so much money? It just drives up the cost of entertainment for the people. So I was like, yes, actors should not be making millions of dollars. They should just make the same wage as other government employees, right? The government should produce all the entertainment and make it available to everybody for free so that it's not just enjoyed by the rich and people aren't exploiting us by getting rich making movies. I talked about, how much money the movies companies are making. It's all exploited on the backs of the people, right? I really let him have it right back with his own socialism to show him what a hypocrite he is. These guys in Hollywood make so much money play acting, right? How many people would love to be able to make all that money just playing dress up, right? They do what we all would do for free, right? We all do as kids, right? These guys do for a living what we did as kids, right? We paid make-believe and dress up and, they do that and they get paid to do it. And they get paid a ton of money to do it, yet they hate capitalism when they are being rewarded. You think they can make any of this money in a communist system? Of course not. But the reason they're able to make all this money is because people actually enjoy what they do. And they're willing to pay a few bucks to watch these movies. And the reason that they make so much money is because so many people contribute a few bucks. And because they are, enriching the lives of so many people, they get rich themselves. That's the way it works, right? That's the beauty of capitalism. It's just unfortunate that some of the biggest beneficiaries of capitalism don't appreciate it and they don't understand it. But unfortunately, Donald Trump doesn't seem to understand it either, even though he did very well under at least whatever version of capitalism we've got. But not only doesn't he understand capitalism, he doesn't understand tariffs. The fact that he thinks he can tariff the movie industry, that he thinks he can, recreate this industry and force companies to film in America when filming in other countries is more economical. Now, the question is, you could say, why? Why is it that some of the production that could be done in America, why is it being done in other countries? That's the key. And what could Donald Trump do? What is the reason? What local regulations, whether they're labor regulations or other permits, what are governments doing to run up the cost of domestic production so that it's actually cheaper for these companies to produce abroad? See, that would make sense. Trying to figure out how the government is driving up the cost of production and then reverse those policies and then allow a natural, right? Now, companies if we can reduce those government burdens that artificially run up the costs, now when they're figuring out where they want to do something, they may do it in the United States. That is the way to do it, not try to threaten them or bully them or extort them by talking about 100% tariffs on foreign movies that you don't even have the ability to impose. If he wants these taxes, Congress is going to have to pass them. He can't try to, squeeze them in as some kind of an emergency and try to, couch it as some kind of tariff. I don't know, maybe his advisors are going to, let him in on this. Hey, excuse me, hey, Mr. President, we can't do that. You gotta forget about this movie tariff thing. I know you mentioned it a few months ago and we kind of told you that we couldn't do it. And then, you just posted it out again on Truth Social. You gotta, ixnay on that because, we really can't do it, right? So just drop that, keep it on down low and, move on. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it just really shows you how ridiculous this whole thing is for him to actually think that that's how tariffs work. And if he doesn't understand how tariffs work, that's why he thinks that the Chinese pay him. That's how he thinks that the Indians pay him, right? If he doesn't understand tariffs, it makes sense he doesn't understand who pays him. He thinks it's all this free revenue that's raining down on him. And it, doesn't realize that the source of the revenue are the American people themselves, and the people who are absorbing the hit the most, the ones who are the hardest hit, are the very people that he's claiming to champion. the middle class, right? That's who he's supposed to be helping, the workers, yet he's clobbering them with these tariffs. Anyway, that's it for today's podcast. Again, I'm going to be doing the Schiff Gold Friday market wrap, so don't forget to tune in for that. Also, make sure and subscribe if you're not currently a subscriber of the Schiff Sovereign newsletter. You got to sign up. We've got some really great content that is coming out. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more too on the government shutdown as this saga continues. So you want to make sure to read everything that we put out at schiffsovereign.com. Again, don't forget, subscribe to this channel. Still trying to get to 600,000 subscribers. It seems like it's an impossible milestone, but hopefully I'll get there one day. We're close. We're fewer than 5,000 away, but I don't know it's been 2 years and I can't get above that number. And again, subscribe to the other podcasts as well at Schiff at Schiff Gold. And again, if you like it, leave me a comment, give it a thumbs up, and I will be back again next week with more podcasts. So make sure to tune in and tell your friends. Bye for now.